We have GPS tracking and social distancing features also. This is the recent feature that, yes, I can say that social distancing and GPS tracking. The why, I'll just wrap up with these two things: GPS tracking and social distancing. Let's say we have a quarantine place. You might have aware now because of this COVID-19. Is like what do you mean by quarantine places, where where we keep people isolated from the other crowd for a given period, let's say for 15 days or 20 days. So sometimes people violates the rules and regulation. They cannot stay inside a room, or they cannot be quarantined for more than 10 or 20 days, or whatever the rule is. So instead of that, instead of monitoring them continuously, just give them a particular device which will have a GPS tracking, and based on that we can actually check whether the person has violated quarantine rules or not. So we'll be keeping one radius. So let's say I have quarantine place, and from that place I'll be keeping one quarantine radius of, let's say, 500 meter or 1 kilometer. So if a particular person from that quarantine center crosses that particular range, so with the help of GPS tracking, we can actually predict that, yes, so and so person has violated our rules, and we can take necessary action on him. So it's a cool feature that nowadays people are providing. And if they're not providing, so this feature can be added into the smart watches, and into the dedicated watches. And again, social distancing, this is the specific dedicated feature for bands. If we have two similar bands, or if we have given the similar bands to quarantine people, or to people who work in public sectors, so we can set a particular radius. So if two person comes near each other with a minimum distance, or if they crosses the minimum distance, the band will generate an alert, and the band will notify that, okay, you're not maintaining social distancing and you need to maintain it properly, or something like that. So all these features for social distancing, actually we can use any wireless technology. So most of the bands uses BLE connectivity, that is Bluetooth Low Energy, so that all the features can be controlled and monitored from your smart mobile applications or your servers. Because since Bluetooth supports low energy feature, it uses very low power, and it is very accurate, authenticate. We can have a lot of encryptions in that, and the same technology can be used for social distancing also. Bluetooth, basically what Bluetooth is, it's nothing but a radio communication. So it transmits the radio power, and let's say you have two bands which are transmitting radio power, so you can actually calculate like what is the power level of your other device. So based on the power level or the transmit power level of your other devices, you can have this social distancing feature. We have actually developed a social distancing band, and we are going to launch it very soon. So I cannot talk on this social distancing feature on depth. So, but I can give you one small brief idea about how it works. And yes, a lot of alerts and reports we can generate on our band. Let's say we can trigger all the events at a time with particular interval. Let's say after every 5 minutes my heart rate should display, after every 10 minutes my blood level should display, after every 15 or 20 minutes my temperature should display. Then sleep quality, yes, I forgot to add sleep quality. Sleep quality is nothing but analyzing all the parameters, analyzing your heart rate, analyzing your movement while you're sleeping, analyzing your temperature while you're sleeping, analyzing your oxygen level while you're sleeping. So based on all this combination, we determine that the person had a good sleep or not. So for this, we don't have a special sensor, or maybe in future R&D centers or companies can develop a special sensor. But right now we don't have a particular dedicated sensor for quality, sleep quality. So all these features can be triggered periodically, or they can be triggered manually. So this is how a band works. And why I have chosen this project, again I'm telling you, because this is very much relevant to our webinar. This is very much relevant to our course, because our course is sensing techniques, and this product is full of sensors. So if you join a company, let's say, and they're working on such kind of products, and you have already knowledge on these technologies, I'm not talking about the sensor part, I'm talking about the technique parts. Again, sensor can be anything. You need to know the techniques, how to interface it. So that is the reason this case study I have taken, and which is very important. And I think this is, very much clear, like why sensing technique is very important. So this is all about the case study. Then we'll be discussing about, the job prospect parts and the skill parts. Now, what are you going to learn from this course, and how is this relevant to the current job scenario? So generally for embedded system jobs, the companies or recruiters, they ask for, let's say, if you are a fresher or if you are experienced, you should have knowledge on a lot of things, and how this workshop will be beneficial for you, and how this will help you to have a better career. So we have a communication protocol. Yes, we are going to cover a lot of communication protocol, and this workshop will cover most of your communication protocol. And all these protocols are used in all the industries, and they have not changed any protocols, or they have not designed any new protocols. So the protocol remains same. So yes, if you have knowledge on this protocol, it is really helpful. I2C, UART, SPI, CAN, and then we have other derived protocol from this basic protocol. So we'll be covering these protocols as well, and this will be really helpful. Then this workshop will be helpful for your IoT development related jobs also. Like in as a fresher, a lot of company hires IoT developers. IoT developers, IoT software developers, IoT hardware developers. IoT product, what do you mean by IoT product? Like, earlier I have given you an example, monitoring temperature sensor, or I have given you the COVID-19 example, where you need to design a device which, calculates or your health related parameter and store it. So basically with this workshop, you will have all the techniques which are required for your IoT development. And then again, robotics and automation, this is slightly different field from embedded system, but yes, it is related to electronics, but it's a slight different field in embedded systems, like designing robots, designing process automation in the sense of pick and place machine, or sorting machine, or some kind of arrangement machine. Then designing SPM is special purpose machine. Designing welding robots, then designing sorting robots, and all those robotics field. Definitely you need to have knowledge on sensors, and that is why this course will also help you to have a clear picture on robotics and automation sensing techniques. Then again, one more very relevant job profile in the market today is embedded Linux device drivers. So what do you mean by device driver is nothing but, what do you mean by device driver? Device is nothing but my electronic component, or electronic sensor, or a different subsystem, or a different embedded system, I can say. So device driver is nothing but to develop a software or piece of code which is responsible to communicate to that particular device. So device driver is nothing but making a driver, which is making a software which is responsible to communicate to that device in Linux platform. So again, as I told you guys earlier, that this is platform independent, because you're going to learn the techniques. So once you grasp the technique, once you learn the techniques, it will be platform independent, and you can apply this to any other platform, as I have mentioned, and Linux could be one more platform. So these are the fields you can easily target, and these are the skills that you will be having, and it will be very helpful actually. And these are the designations you can easily target with this course. So we have embedded software engineers, embedded hardware and embedded test engineers. So basically software engineer is to, let's say you have to write a code for particular module or a particular project. So for embedded systems, it is all about communicating with device, extracting data from the device, processing the data, and then displaying. In the second slide, if you guys are remember, then I have explained you the definition of embedded system. So embedded engineer, software, hardware and test. Hardware I have put it because in this course, we are going to study techniques in terms of software as well as in terms of hardware. How are you going to interface, and then what challenges generally we face, because embedded system is slightly different field than the other software fields. Here it happens sometimes, it actually it happens to me also, and it happens to every other embedded engineers, that whatever code you write, if let's say the code is working today, there is a possibility, there is a chance that the code will not work tomorrow. Now, why this happens? We will be looking into this also, because it is not about the software, it is about combination of software and hardware. And that is what you need to learn. That is the technology you need to understand. So that is why this course is important to trigger embedded software engineering posts and embedded hardware engineering posts with test engineers. Definitely, if you are a developer, you should be a good tester also. You need to test whatever you have done as a user perspective. Sometimes what happens is we develop something, we don't test it properly because we are the developers. Sometimes we have the sympathy or we have some kind of emotions with our project that we don't test it properly. So we have to forget it and we have to use proper test cases. And that also we are going to cover in this course, like how you will be testing it, whatever you have done, what are the prospects you need to use, what procedure you need to follow, what process you need to follow after development of a particular device. Testing related to software and hardware also we are going to cover. So that's why this course will be helpful for your software, hardware, and test positions. Then again, mechatronics and robotics and automation, both the fields, both the positions are quite similar. Mechatronics is somewhat related to electronics and mechanical, where you need to have some mechanical knowledge as well. But robotics and automation, somewhat related to your process automation, as I've mentioned earlier. And yes, these fields, again, you need embedded system, again, you need sensing techniques. So for these positions also, you can easily target in the market. And then we have embedded firmware. Embedded firmware and embedded software are basically one and the same thing. The only small difference I can say is firmware is nothing but designing the entire software of the product instead of developing a particular module. So if you have technique knowledge and handling the techniques, like handling a lot of sensors, as I mentioned in my case study, like I have different types of sensors, I have all 6 7 types of sensors. Then how I manage it, if you learn that thing, or with this workshop we are going to provide a lot of assignments also to you. So with all these assignments, you will have a clear picture like how a particular system is designed, what are the constants, what are the topics, what are the points that we need to consider. So we can definitely target embedded firmware engineer positions for freshers and for trainee graduate people. And then again, electrical application engineer is somewhat related to my robotics and automation, where you need to design hardware. Keep in mind, robotics and automation engineer, we have two positions. For robotics and automation engineers, they usually link this position to software field, and the robotics automation hardware engineer is nothing but your electrical application engineer, where you need to design all the electrical of that particular robot in terms of what type of motors and drivers and sensors and how you're going to interface and the power management and a lot of things. So this course will have not only the knowledge you're going to learn, but also we'll be giving you a lot of assignments. We will be creating a lot of bugs. We'll be creating a lot of errors to you. So you will be having, a proper understanding of embedded system. It is very important for a fresher or for a graduate or even for experience to have a grassroots knowledge of the process, to have a grassroots knowledge of the technology. I personally don't believe that having a lot of advanced knowledge will create a very big impact to you. And this is how it functions. So I have a little story that just want to share it with you guys. So 1 year back, I took an interview of one fresher candidate, and he had a lot of certificates. He carried a lot of certificates with him, and he has mentioned and he has showed me that yes, I have completed this advanced course, that advanced course. I'm all good for this position and all. But when I started asking about, let's say, for that particular course, what you have done, how you have done, and I try to create some problem in that course, in that project, whatever he has done. So he started fumbling, and he was not having proper knowledge on the technology. And to be very honest, guys, it is very important to have a basic grassroots level knowledge, and that is more than enough for a freshers. So why I'm telling, or why I'm telling you this story, is because as an industry, as a recruiter, if you talk about me, I will not expect that a fresher candidate should have very big knowledge or the candidate should have knowledge on big technologies. Instead of that, the candidate should have the basic aptitude for the job, basic aptitude for embedded system. He should understand how the works, so that in future, if my company has some project which is on different platform, so the candidate can able to handle. And this is why we have come up with this course. We are going to provide a very basic and a grassroots level of course with embedded and its sensing techniques. And this is all about the webinar.